Assalamualaikum and hello everyone. My name is Nur Atira. Thanks for having me. Before that, I want to ask you all, who here has children? Or who really likes and loves children? Yes, I'm pretty sure that almost everyone in the world loves children. But there are also those who don't like children so much that they do bad things to children, like abusing children. Therefore, this is what we will be focused on today. Before we go a bit deeper, I would like to introduce our group name. It's called Lemonade. Yes, Lemonade. We choose people as a team, and the topic today is child abuse. Every day, we hear incidents about crimes against children which are widely reported in our media. We used to wonder how a human can misbehave with a small, innocent, helpless child, and sometimes take solace to the fact that it happened elsewhere and to an unknown child. For information, any form of violence or mistreatment, be it physical, sexual, or psychological against children, may be considered as child abuse. Child abuse can happen anywhere, be at your home, bus, school, or anywhere we interact. That's a little bit introduction about child abuse. So today, the highlight purpose is to inform and share with my audience about the factors that cause child abuse. Why is this happening? The central idea of this topic is child abuse occurs most often in families who are under pressure and lack support, domestic violence, financial difficulties, and poor living conditions. Lastly, to find out more about the factors that cause child abuse, my friends will present to you one by one about the factors that cause child abuse. So, stay tuned.
So, that is a brief introduction on what child abuse is. Now, I will talk about isolation and lack of support that were included in factors of child abuse. Many researchers conclude that neglect or harm caused by no family members, partners, caregivers, friends, or community support with the demands of parenting is part of the definition of lack of support. Conditions such as hunger and poverty are sometimes included within the definition of isolation. Because definitions vary and those reporting abuse do not always require the mandatory reporting of neglect, so it is difficult to estimate the global dimensions of the problem or meaningfully comparison between countries. Leading research, for instance, has been done on how children and parents or other caregivers may differ in defining neglect. Abandonment and neglect were the most commonly cited aspects of child abuse when adults in the community were questioned on the subject. In this study, 21.9% of children reported that they had been neglected by their parents. There is also a national study of cases reported to Child Welfare Service found that among the substantiated cases of neglect, 19% involve physical neglect, 12% abandonment, 11% educational neglect, and 48% physical harm resulting from a parent's failure to provide adequate supervision. Whether from family, friends, co-workers, teachers, coaches, therapists, or people of all ages can neglect them. The exposure of children to drugs and inadequate protection from environmental dangers, abandonment, inadequate supervision for hygiene, and being deprived of education have all been considered as evidence of neglect. Among the factors of child's isolation and lack of support is none other than being a special characteristic. Premature infants, twins, and handicapped children already increase the risk for physical abuse and neglect. There are conflicting findings in study on the importance of mental retardation as a risk factor. It is believed that low birth weight, prematurity, illness, physical or mental handicaps in the infants or child interfere with attachment and bonding may make the child more vulnerable to abuse. Next, the family size and household composition. The size of family can also increase the risk for abuse. A study of parents in Chile, for example, found that a family with 4 or more children were 3 times more likely to be violent towards their children than a parents with fewer children. However, It is not always simply that the size of the family that matters. Data from a range of countries indicate household overcrowding increase the child abuse. It's a feature particularly noted cases in chronic neglect. It is because of, firstly, lack of trust and relationship difficulties. If you can't trust your parents, who can you trust? Without this base, it is very difficult to trust people or know who is trustworthy. This can lead to difficulty maintaining relationship in adulthood. Secondly, core feelings of being worthless. If you have been told over and over again as a child that you are very, very stupid or no good, so it is very difficult to overcome this core feeling. As they grow up, abused kids may neglect their education or settle for low-paying jobs because they do not believe they are worth more. For example, sexual abuse survivors, with the stigma and shame surrounding the abuse, they often struggle with a feeling of being damaged. Thirdly, trouble regulating emotions. Abused children cannot express emotions safely. As a result, the emotions stuff down and coming out in unexpected ways. Hence, adult survivors of child abuse will struggle with unexplained anxiety, depression, or anger. They will be unkempt, weak, malnourished, mutilated, abandoned children, and cast out by family to fend for themselves. The fact is, neglected abused children are indeed more likely to repeat the cycle as adults, unconsciously repeating what they experienced as children. On the other hand, many adult survivors of child abuse have a strong motivation to protect their children against what they went through and become excellent parents. By approaching family supports, training healthcare professionals, and service for children who witness violence, they can be safe.
Hi, my point is domestic violence. When people think of domestic and family violence, they often think of how much it hurts the adult victim. It's true that domestic and family violence is most often violence, abusive, or intimidating behavior by a man towards a woman. But what you may not realize is that children also experience domestic violence, and this affects their physical and emotional health and well-being. Of those women who experience domestic and family violence, more than 50% have children in their care. Domestic and family violence was the most commonly reported issue to Department of Communities and Justice for Children at Risk of Significant Harm in 2010, with more than 20,000 reports received. Domestic and family violence is also the leading cause of homelessness for children in Australia. The impact of domestic and family violence on children is immense and can often affect them for the rest of their life. Children and young people don't have to see the violence to be affected by it. The effects studies show that living with domestic violence can cause physical and emotional harm to children and young people in the following ways: ongoing anxiety and depression, emotional distress, eating and sleeping disturbance, physical symptoms, self-harm, be aggressive towards friends and schoolmates, feel guilt or blame themselves for the violence, have trouble forming positive relationship, physical safety. Sometimes being exposed to domestic and family violence isn't just a matter of witnessing it. Children and young people are often physically hurt during violent episodes, either accidentally or deliberately. Children and young people need to grow up in a secure and nurturing environment where domestic or family violence exists. The home is not safe or secure, and children are scared about what might happen to them and the people they love. That's all from me. I pass the next point to Fatin.
Hi everyone, thanks to Syafiqah Auni for inviting me to continue the next section. So at the same time, I will continue with the third factor of child abuse, is difficulties financial. I will show you a page of news that prove difficulties financial to be the causes of child abuse. In addition, difficulties financial have been detected as a factor for parents to act violently against their children, so that there is physical and emotional abuse. Eventually, if the children ask for money or they think their needs from their parents, certainly they will be victims of this abuse. For instance, during the pandemic COVID-19 in the country of Malaysia, many parents lost their job causes of the cost of living and rising unemployment rate and forcing parents into debt to ensure survival. Moreover, their parents will have fluctuated depression by this problem and lost control to hurt their children. Thus, a situation has become sad because children should not be treated like this, because the children still need love and protection from their parents. Next, financial are more important to create a perfect family, but the power of affection and concern need to be applied even do not having money. Even difficulties financial constrain parents do not pass them on the children and think of the best way to solve the problem. Lastly, a good head of the family must be far-sighted because they think two things about are not only on the comfort of life for today, but for the future that is still long. In conclusion, this difficulties financial is very worrying because it has causes these innocent children to become victims of child abuse to their parents. So the government need to take this matter seriously to reduce these cases of child abuse. In other words, child abuse happen not because of the will of the parent, but the burden and pressure of life that causes them to go out of the control with their children. And last for me, difficulties financial should not be an excuse for child abuse, but parents need to figure out the best way to get out of this problem. That's all for me. I will pass the next session to Salwani. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend Fatin. So now, the last point I would like to talk about is poverty and poor living condition. Poverty and poor living condition are the causes of child abuse. Poverty in life can put pressure on working parents or any parents, which is where the cost of living is now rising. Many people too go into debt to support their life cost of each day. So this thing put pressure on them about the cost of living and the debt that have to be paid. This is the reason they release the pressure on their children. Besides that, poor living conditions are also one of the causes of child abuse. This is because the surrounding conditions are very affected for the current child abuse. For example, the careless of parents who send their children to a babysitter without doing a background check of the babysitter. It is because many cases of child abuse occur when sent to insane babysitter. Next, the busyness of parents in working also make children feel less attention and love. Then because of that, them show aggressive behavior in front of their parents to get their attention. This is make parents angry at their children's behavior and will happen child abuse if their parents are not control their emotion. That's all from me. I will pass to my friend. Thank you.
In conclusion, child abuse is virtually always avoidable. It takes a level of acceptance from parents and caregivers. Adults in a child's life must also struggle to overcome the obstacles, sentiments, or beliefs that lead to this action. There's no clear explanation why some adults or parents mistreat their children. The factors that contribute to child abuse, like many other things, are complicated and sometimes linked with other difficulties. This problem could be even more difficult to recognize and clarify than the actual abuse. Isolation and lack of support from surrounding, domestic violence, financial difficulties, poverty, and poor living conditions are some of the factors that can lead to child abuse. The awareness of child abuse is still low in our society. it should be aggressively viewed up at all levels to prevent it from occurring. Some people believe that only physical abuse is worthy of serious consideration. Mental abuse, on the other hand, should not be ignored. Child abuse has severe consequences for children. Consistent parental maltreatment can harm children's emotion and mental development. They will lose confidence in themselves and may ignore social interaction. Their academic performance may be impacted as well. As they grow older, abused children are more likely to keep their feelings to themselves and express them by bullying others, including friends, or committing crime. To lessen the likelihood of crimes, we should address this issue as soon as possible. There's no children who want to be harmed. Parents should spend more quality time with their children and pay attention to their concerns and wants. Children should not be neglected since they are entitled to the protection of their families. The most important aim is to shape children to be a valuable asset for our country. That's all. Thank you.